Hello and welcome to today's video. As you can see, we are doing scenarios of One Piece, what if, and what would happen in those sorts of scenarios. So let's start off with scenario number 1. What if Shanks let Luffy join his crew? What I think would happen during this thing, during the journey, is that Luffy would be a little kid and he would be really happy to be joining Shanks, but he would be like the worst at going up against the big enemies. So it would not end well for him. Also, I think this would unfortunately be one of the areas where Luffy's crew would end up being something completely different. Like, for example, Usopp would be unfortunately blanked by Kuro, and Zoro would be left to pass in Shell's Town, and Nami would still be working for Arlong. So the next up is what if Luffy never ate his devil fruit? Obviously we wouldn't know him as the stretchy pirate king that we know and love, but I also believe that most of the fights that he would get into would not happen the way we want it to. So if he had gone to fight Arlong, for example, using his Gun Gatling wouldn't be his main problem. So there you go. Most of his powers, most of his fights that he has been in required the power of the Gum fruit. So if he had continued his normal journey without a devil fruit, I believe that he would have probably either died at the hands of Arlong, or maybe he found another way to enhance his skills. So the next up, the question is, what if Sabo and Ace joined Luffy's crew? So what I think would happen is, obviously, Ace wouldn't go off and attack Blackbeard, meaning he would never get caught or handed into the Marines. And obviously we wouldn't get anything from like Sabo disappearing and all that. They'd all stay together, and they'd probably train until Luffy was old enough to go off on a pirate journey, and then they'd all go off, and I think at the start it would end up being like a massive fight against the Marines. Alvida first, and then actually no, I don't think at this point, I don't think Luffy would have had an encounter with Alvida, because obviously he wouldn't have got trapped in the barrel, meaning he wouldn't like sail away and then get caught by the people on Alvida's ship, and then because he's got Ace and Sabo, they'd be there to make sure he didn't like do anything stupid. So I think Kobe would kind of get cut out of it. He'd probably end up staying with Alvida, and then that actually brings up a lot of questions, because then if Luffy never met Kobe, he wouldn't go to Shell's Town, meaning he wouldn't rescue Zoro. So wherever they end up, whether it's Arlong Park or things like that, they'd be up there for quite a bit of time, and they'd be able to actually compete against him with their strengths and stuff, meaning they'd probably get Nami back and then have her as a navigator, or they would go a completely different route for all we know. So that's all I'm going to say about this, but it does bring up questions about what would happen to his crew members, whether he'd get Nami and Sanji back, or Nami, Sanji and Usopp back, or if they would just end up going to Shell's Town anyway because of Zoro. Anyway, next question. Next up we have, what if Luffy made Zoro his navigator? And I've just realised I forgot to put an E in the title, but never mind. This is basically a throwaway joke, as we all know Zoro gets lost a lot, but there are some fan theories that say that Zoro is being led to the One Piece. So the reason this question came up, in my opinion, is that what if Zoro is being navigated to get the One Piece? So if Luffy had offered Zoro the job of navigator, it would probably end up being just him and Luffy, but I do believe it would make much more sense that they would end up being the ones to find the One Piece, and then it would probably be a quick one, and so it would end up being quite a small one, but it's meant to just be like a throwaway joke rather than an actual thing that could happen. Anyway, the next slide says, what if Luffy became a Marine? So I as you can see on the screen, this is like a fictional world where Luffy would start off as a scrubber boy and then go up in stages. I do think that would happen. Let me think. Obviously, if he okay, so there are some problems with this, meaning especially the fact that he, none of his members of the team, so from Zoro all the way to Brook and Jinbei, but that comes up later. He'd probably miss all those chances, and they'd all go off and unfortunately be lost or be captured, or even worse, be disowned. And so none of his crew members that we know would end up happening. However, there are things where people do believe that if he was to have the right to do it, he could have stepped in and fought like Arlong, meaning Nami would be saved by the Marines, meaning she would either go on to become a low-rank Marine, or she would end up trying to stay with her her adopted sister, and we don't know what happens with that. Obviously, I think the hardest part to this would be if Luffy did this by himself and didn't do any, so let's say Ace and Sabo both went off, and they got caught. What I think would end up happening is Luffy would have to be put face to face with Ace in the scenario which he had been put in for Marineford, and I feel like he would either not want to do it because of how good he was to him as a friend when he was a child, and so yeah, it would be a really hard thing for him to do. So there's some stuff that could go down. But anyway, what I feel might happen next is, okay, so next up is, what if Usopp didn't join the crew? So first off, there would be a whole bunch of stuff that wouldn't go down too well. So they wouldn't have a ship, meaning they would just still be going around in a little dinghy thing, and also they wouldn't have the external weapons to be able to get away from some of the attacks from the world government. And also, like, I know this wouldn't occur until later, but yeah, Usopp wouldn't have a bounty on his head. But what I'd be saying is, if they did find a ship, say Usopp didn't go with them, but what's his name? Oh, damn it. The sheep man. I can't remember his name. If you remember, please tell me in the comments. But if he, Mary, that's it. But let's say Mary gave them the boat, but Usopp didn't join. Further down the line, we'd get to Water 7. So Luffy and Usopp wouldn't end up having that fight about it. They'd just get rid of the ship straight away. They wouldn't have a fight. So they'd go and find someone at Water 7 to help do the boat thing. But now would just move straight on. Let me think. What else did Usopp help with? Yes, Zoro wouldn't have a third sword in the battle against the giraffe guy, Kaku. Let me think. I'm trying to think. What else did Usopp do? Oh yeah, Sugar would have gotten away with things in the Dressrosa arc. If Usopp didn't freak her out, so she would have gotten away with that. And also, I doubt they would have met Dory and Buggy. And this is just theoretical, and it has come out in the manga. So spoiler if you haven't read the Japanese manga yet. So Loki holds a hammer, and this part is theoretical. We've got Usopp holding the hammer, so if he didn't go, he wouldn't have been able to pick up that hammer if it happens. It's just a theoretical. It's not, I don't know what Oda's cooking up yet, so we don't know if he's gonna lift it, but in a theoretical sense, it would be, he wouldn't have been able to pick up the hammer, and they'd probably get Zoro to do it for all we know. Anyway, the next slide says, what if Sanji stayed at Baratie? This is another one of those questions, but I've kind of like mixed it up. So it's basically, what if Sanji didn't join the crew, but what if he stayed at Baratier, because what else would he be doing? So what I think would happen is, first off, none of the crew members would be eating as well as they would. They wouldn't be getting good food. And lucky for Nami and Robin, they wouldn't be getting kind of like perved on by him. But also, there are some moments where Sanji did do good. Let's see. Obviously, sorry, I'm trying to think. Well, I guess he wouldn't be helping out with Arlong, and let me think. What else? Well, okay, if you guys know what the things he's been doing, obviously, if those things didn't happen, something might have gone wrong, and yeah, they probably would have not done as well as they could have. So yeah, and that's basically about it. So the main thing is they wouldn't have a cook to help them. Next up, we have what if Nami didn't join the crew? First off, her main responsibility, navigation. Yeah, they wouldn't be going anywhere. Even though Luffy would decide mostly where we need to go, but without her input, she wouldn't be, well, they wouldn't have made it to the places they need to. Second off, they probably, the fight between her and Khalifa wouldn't have happened, so that would mean one extra person to fight at Water 7, meaning if they had been tired out and stuff like that, they wouldn't have got anywhere. And also yeah, yeah. Wait, who was the one who told it? Oh no, now it's Frank. Never mind. I was going to say something about the coating, but now it's Frankie, not Nami. Also, they wouldn't. Yeah, Sanji would only be simping over Robin. Trying to think, what else has she done? I know she has Zeus, so Zeus would have stayed with Big Mom, and so now would probably end up being part of why Kaido would win. And then let's see what else. Obviously she wouldn't have been able to stop Sanji from getting taken away by I think his name is Bernard, the guy with the mustache who has like a stripy t-shirt, and then he's like a entire castle. But obviously he wouldn't have been able to get away with it if it was just Chopper. So Sanji would have immediately gone to Big Mum. Even though he still did, it would have just been a lot easier rather than having like Nami and Chopper helping. Let's see what else. Here another one. Luffy and Usopp and Chopper would all make stupid mistakes, and even though Robin could step in to stop them, they would just end up making the stupid mistakes rather than being stopped by Nami. So there are a lot of things Nami does that help the crew from being stupid. Okay, next up we have what if Arlong beat Luffy? So what I think would happen is that obviously let's this is theoretical and obviously nonchalant, but if Arlong was able to defeat Luffy, that would mean Arlong would end up capturing everyone. So they're the group of 5, but let's say Luffy loses, and then there's Zoro, Nami, Usopp, and Sanji left. Nami would probably still be working for Arlong, and then Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji would end up being like captors of him, and also be like Nami, going out and collecting berries and all that sort of thing for Arlong to get his share back. So it's all theoretical, but Arlong beating Luffy would mean a lot of things. Like, obviously he wouldn't be able to go any further than Arlong Park, so there'd be no Log Town, no Alabasta, no Chopper, Robin, Frankie, Brooke, and Jinbei, and Chopper would probably end up still working for Kurenai. Robin would probably be working under Crocodile still, and he would probably end up being one of the people to but the thing is, there's still things that happened before Arlong that would actually make something like this happen. So, for example, let's say the news got out around the world that Luffy got beaten by Arlong. You have Garp, Ace, Sabo, Dragon, all there, 4 strongest opponents, and Shanks, 5 strongest opponents of Luffy that could come and destroy him to get revenge. But I feel like the only person who would end up doing it would be either Ace or Shanks. Obviously, Garp would freeze at it like he did when Ace was being executed. But I think the people to get back to him would be either Ace or Shanks. Anyway, then the final question is... So, the final question for this season of What If is... What if Dragon didn't show up at Log Town? Obviously, in this picture, as you can see, Smoker would have basically kicked the shit out of him and taken him into the Marines. And obviously, with the other characters not being in that area, no one would have seen that Luffy was being taken by Smoker. So obviously, in the original, Dragon showed up and stopped Smoker from actually doing it. But in this one, Dragon doesn't show up. So what ends up happening is Smoker takes Luffy and kind of like knocks him out and takes him to the Marines to stop him from being a pirate. And then obviously nothing again, like with Arlong, the bits along from Logtown to Egghead, which is where we are now, the events of that would not happen. It would end up being a completely different show. It would be a prison show. But yeah, Dragon, being the OP man that he is, not showing up doesn't work out. So yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching this first season of One Piece What If. If you did enjoy what I was doing, then I'm willing to do a season 2 to help do more stuff. And get this, I'm working on a project linked with Minecraft. So hopefully, if this goes well, I'll be able to chuck it out to you. And there's two other projects coming before my 100 days. I shouldn't have said that. Now you know what it's gonna be before my Minecraft video. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and see you later.